It's been a pretty sad, depressing year for desktop
Is this processor
CPUs.
good? This is
Zen
the
5
new
was cool,
fastest
literally,
processor
but
in the
not
world.
exciting. And then Core Ultra 200 was interesting, but unimpressive. Today, that changes. Behold, the blessing that AMD hath bestowed upon us, imbued with second-generation 3D V-Cache, higher clock speeds, and more power! The 9800 X3D somehow tops our gaming charts, and it runs cooler than the X3D chips that came before it.
Oh,
Heck.
nice.
That's not usually how that works at all. Is something wrong?
That's a good question. It seems like you never had enough energy these days.
Get a boost with our sponsor, EcoFlow.
And check out their rapid magnetic power bank.
It's got Qi2 wireless charging and a built-in cable. According to the testing, the iPhone 15 Pro charges to 50% in just 25 minutes.
You can learn more at the link in the video description.
Nice, interesting.
While the 7800 X3D came out a year after the 5800 X3D, it still used what AMD calls first generation 3D V-Cache. So sure, the new chip performed better than the old one, but the big selling point, the 3D V-Cache, wasn't all that different physically. AMD piled a bunch of extra cache on top of the chip, threw games at it, and then generously distributed high fives throughout the office. With the 9800 X3D though, we're getting something fresh. We're still getting the same number of cores, 8 cores with 2 threads each, and the same amount of cache, 96 megabytes of level 3 and 1 megabyte of level 2 per core, but they've gone and they've put all of that juicy 3D V-Cache below the core complex die.
Wait, what? So before in the X3D chips, the 3D cache would always be above the core. Now they put it below? Huh. Wait, the 3D V-Cache technology has been re-engineered to give direct cooler access to the processor cores. That's actually pretty smart. Huh. Maybe it's just the technological limitation or something before, but before they couldn't do it. I think they wasn't able to put the cache below the processor because the hottest component of your chips are mostly your what do you call it? Your processor, right? Like the cores, but the cache was on top of it, so it just heated each other pretty bad. So this time they just put the cache below the chip, so the cooler just sits on top of the processor, and then it has a heat distribution evenly. Seems like they're cooking with this one. They're actually cooking. New X3D chips are cooking, dude. I think this will at least give you like 10 degrees lower temperature.
Which contains new
10 out of 5.
Zen 5 processing cores. This
Cool.
change allows for better complex die, which
Wait, let me see what else is. For the first time in X3D, overclocking is fully enabled. You can overclock this bitch? Alright.
all of that juicy 3D V-Cache below the core complex die, which contains new Zen 5 processing cores. This
That is actually kind of revolutionary, to be honest. You can overclock the freaking
change
X3D chip
allows
now?
for better cooling, which also seems to have allowed AMD to juice
That's
those cores a
insane.
little harder, resulting in a 200 megahertz uplift in boost clocks over last gen, and a surprising 500 megahertz increase to base clocks. Now, the official TDP has actually remained the same, but our 9800 X3D is definitely sucking back more power, both in productivity and in games. And what's especially cool to suck more power.
How many
both
nanometers? So it got lower in nanometers. Look at that. TMC 5 nanometer and then TMC 4 nanometer. Oh,
in productivity and in games. And what's
is still
especially
remains the
cool
same.
to some of you watching this video is that AMD has committed to finally unlock these chips, allowing overclocking. We're going to be looking at 4 different platforms today.
Hell yeah.
Intel 200 series, Intel 14th gen, AM4 for the savvy gamers who bought into that long-lived platform, and AMD's 9000 series non-X3D chips. We also threw in a Ryzen 3600X for anyone who's on a slightly older platform and is wondering if it's finally time. And you know what?
Absolutely,
It just
it's
might
final
be.
time.
Do you like generational uplift? How do you like them generational uplift?
It was that single the cage differentiation makes a lot of freaking sense, 484, one person's lows are like 20 FPS more. 1500 X3 is still up there. Eh, I mean, if you are in an X3D chip, it's not still worth the update. Look at the difference between the X3D 5 or AM4. It's 390, and then you get 50 FPS more in 1% lows. It's not that big of a difference. It's 100 FPS, yes, but I mean, we already getting 400 FPS with the X3D, so who gives a fuck, right?
This jump in F123 at 1080p low, it's not quite as big as the leap from Zen 3 to Zen 4, with only about a 5% improvement in 1% lows and about 8% in averages. But for those of you who have been holding on to AM4, an upgrade is starting to look a lot more enticing. We're talking about
Not yet. If you have X3D, 5800 X3, you should wait. Unless you are a really rich
a
person.
20% improvement.
I think this improvement, this should be like this. The safest way for you to upgrade this is like here to here. That would be good uplift in performance. Like here to here. Look at the percentage difference. See?
In average FPS and 13% in lows compared to our 5800 X3D. Then there's Stellaris. Going from a sim time of 110 seconds on Zen 3 down to just 92 for Zen 4, that was good. Hitting 78 seconds on the new 9800 X3D, that's even better. There is some decent competition from the other Zen 5 chips.
What about the
9700X isn't too far behind here, but now that we've got all of those IPC gains from the 9000 series alongside 3D V-Cache, the true gaming winner is clear. And things look dire for anyone who's trying to compete with AMD. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, look at this. It's all AMD, all X3D at the top, with the newcomer breaking the 400 and 300 FPS barriers in averages and 1% lows respectively. There are other good options here. The 5800 X3D is still a great performer, and its value cannot be overstated, especially if you already have an AM4 motherboard. But they've gone end of life, so getting a deal on one might be a little harder in the short term. There are other options though, and we're going to talk about those a little bit later during our value analysis bit. For now, let's come back to game benchmarks, where Cyberpunk shows similar gains over every other chip, and Intel gets just demolished across multiple generations. I mean, I guess a little more gen-to-gen uplift would be nice to see for the 9800 X3D, but it's clear we're off to a bloody good start. And a bloody good continuation. Total War Warhammer 3 is yet another win. It isn't much better than the 9700X, but it is better. While we've got a few more games where the improvements for the 9800 X3D are certainly less impressive, there's decent improvements to 1% lows in Red Dead Redemption 2, particularly over the 5800 X3D, and while Rocket League doesn't seem to care much about 3D V-Cache, the 9800 X3D actually rocks in this game, crossing 800 frames per second in averages, which puts it right near the top of the list. But here's the thing. For CPU reviews, we test at 1080p low. This tells us which CPU is the best by removing any other system bottlenecks like the GPU. But it's kind of like comparing cars based on their top speeds. It's good to know, and a faster car is a faster car if that's what you want to spend your money on, but it's not necessarily representative of the daily driving experience for a typical user.
Yeah, it only has 8 goes, it's gonna suck.
So what happens with our X3D chips when we daily drive them, bumping up the resolution in the in-game settings? I mean, we've got a 4090 on the bench. We might want to use our 4090. And as it turns out, 1080p Ultra and Cyberpunk doesn't give us a huge reason to upgrade to this new CPU. All three of our processors perform well enough.
Oh, you can buy it and then it's gonna be future-proof. There is some tech Andy is gonna say that, right? It's not gonna be future-proof because in the future, the processor will have higher single-thread performance, where your AMD processor is gonna be shit at. So, it's gonna not be a future proof, it's gonna be a future piece of shit.
And as we get more and more GPU bottlenecked through 1440p and 4K resolutions, it becomes harder and harder to justify. And yeah, I know, Cyberpunk, not the be-all and end-all. But out of the 4 games we tested at Ultra, Cyberpunk was actually the one that saw the most improvement. Black Myth Wukong set to Ultra is basically neck and neck across all 3 resolutions, and so is F123 with all 3 chips within a few FPS of each other. As for Red Dead Redemption 2, even at 1080p, there's really not a lot of justification for this upgrade if you'd like to make your games look pretty, which is all kind of a downer.
Yeah, it's not
I was
worth
pretty
it yet.
excited. But could be exciting for those folks out there who don't have a ton of money to upgrade to a new platform with DDR5. Speaking of, it's been a while since AM5 debuted, so for funsies, we tried some different memory kits to see if RAM speed is important on our new Ryzen 7, and it is, but not very. Faster memory resulted in more average FPS, 1% lows, or both on the 3 games we tested, but not by that much, with 6,800 megatransfers per second looking like the sweet spot for value. Coming back to legitimately compelling reasons to upgrade though, I want to talk about how much better thermals are on this new CPU. Both the 9800
Yeah, this is the important paper, because I am expecting at least 10 degrees.
X3D and the 7800 X3D are rated for 120 watts TDP, but only the new CPU actually draws anywhere near that amount in our testing. In Cinebench, last gen only draws about 82 watts on average while reaching 75 degrees Celsius.
Damn.
Our 9800 X3D, thanks to putting the Vcache below the CCD, is drawing up to the full 120 watts while running 7 degrees cooler on average.
Pretty close. Like I said, it's around 10. Depends. It's actually good. That's actually improvement. Like that degree is gonna be making your CPU throttle or not throttle. Great.
Now this testing was done with a 360mm AIO, but what is clear from looking at these numbers is that you could max this thing out with a modest tower cooler and never worry about thermal throttling. It's also going to be a dream for small form factor builders. And that carries through to gaming as well. In our F123 stress test, we're only using a few more watts on average, but we see another 8-degree drop. That is flipping wild, and it kills any interest that someone might have had in other CPUs that have been bragging about new lower temperatures. Actually, AMD's all included. But what about the
But I still think they are gonna win in the single core performance. I'm not sure about that, but they do have multi-core and single core as well, you know. Intel has so many cores nowadays. Like for this, the same chip's price, you can get like 14 cores, 15 cores,
teeny tiny
you
elephant
know,
in the
something
room?
like that.
Let's talk about productivity. While many of you out
The only problem with this chip, in my opinion, is its Achilles heel. It's just its single core performance might be a bit lower, and the core count is lower, straight up. 8 cores is not enough
there
anymore.
are only interested in gaming. Many others enjoy computing in a different way. I want to take a closer look at the 9800 X3D compared to its 9000 series brethren. In Blender, it's a few seconds behind the 9700X and way ahead of last gen. Respectable. In Godot Compile, it now beats the 9700X, but is
I think I'm gonna
significantly
get Intel
behind
next
the
time.
higher tier AMD chips. Handbrake,
I don't want to
same
get an
thing.
AMD.
Photoshop sees the only clear win for the 9800 X3D, but then Premiere, it's back just above the 9700X. PrimeSieve, okay, same thing. Y-Cruncher, I think we're sensing a bit of a pattern here. How about 7-Zip? Yep. Okay, Cinebench. Oh, this is something a little different. It beats the 9700X in multi-core and then loses by just 2 points in single core. Very cool. You know what's not the same thing, by the way? Our new commuter backpack from LTTstore.com. Same great tech-first design philosophy, I'm gonna reach it, 5 liters smaller. Sign up for a notification today. Anyway, the bottom line is, if you were looking at the 9700X as a solid, do-everything CPU, this launch might not change that much. I mean, sure, this is objectively the fastest gaming CPU on the market! And if you want the best of the best, this is it. But bear with me for a second here. At MSRP, the 9800 X3D costs a whopping $230 reduce, or $150 more than the 9700X. And if you're spending almost $500 on your CPU alone, are you really gaming at 1080p? I'm not trying to shame anyone who is. Some of you are probably literally professional gamers and you've got your reasons. But for the folks who aren't trying to go pro, a decent 1440p gaming monitor is like $200 these days, and it's probably gonna do more for your enjoyment than a shiny new CPU that shaves a little bit off of your frame times. And even for the folks with aging systems, the 5800X3D, it's end of life, but you can still purchase a 5700X3D, which is only a little slower, brand new, for $200 at the time of filming. That means you could throw in a RAM upgrade, a 2TB M.2 SSD,
Yeah, this is the best build you can build right now. This is exactly what I have.
and a nice meal,
This
and you're
combo is
still
what
paying
exactly I
less than you
have.
would for this CPU alone. Now, there are other reasons to migrate to a new platform. PCIe Gen 5, for example. That might be a difference maker when NVIDIA's 50 series arrives in the next couple of months. But you should
Wait, it's gonna come in next couple of months?
choose based on what a
Yes.
purchase does for you today, not based on what it might do for you later. So don't get me wrong. The improvements that AMD has made here, especially when it comes to thermals with this second gen design, are awesome. I mean, it's refreshing to have something to be excited about for a change. And I'm sure these are gonna fly off the shelves as gamers make the move to AM5. We're gonna have all the CPUs we tested today linked in the description below. But with the pricing being what it is, I think it's worth taking a second look.
If you are a multitasker having like more than 2 monitors, I think you should probably look for something that is like a 9900X or a 9950X. Like the more cores is better for you. Multitasking, this sounds good, but as soon as you launch a AAA game on the side, it's gonna tank.
At the rest
It's gonna
of the
tank
9000
hard.
series, or even last gen if there are deals to be had.
Yeah, even this would be even better in terms of multitasking.
Either way, it looks like Team Red is gonna do just fine over the course of the next year. And after their last launch, I was a little worried that AMD might need to turn into a
the
different
best
kind
awareness
of
I can give is just do not just see the FPS. FPS means not more better performance. Maybe in games, if you run one game at one time, anything else you run on the side, it's going to tank. You need more multiple cores and then multiple single thread performance as well. You know, like multitasking means if you even have Epic Game Store, Steam, freaking Discord, browser on the side, OBS if you're streaming, WhatsApp, file manager. This is called multitasking, dude. Not just multitasking means you have like 100 tabs in Chrome. That's not multitasking. You automatically Windows itself is a multitasking thing or software. So you need more cores to deal with this bullshit. Like I have a 5700 X3D. I launched Dragon Age freaking Vanguard, and then my CPU just sat at 100. What do you call it? 100% all the time. Internet is failing? I think yes.
business with a whole new website.
Like the one I make for my dog workshop.
In just a
Intel
few
fucked
clicks, you
up.
can turn your weird hobby into a real business too. Thanks to our sponsor, Squarespace. We've been using it for years for our own
It's
website.
lasting,
It's so
yes.
easy to get started. Even my dog can do it.
But Dennis, I can just code the website myself.
Can you? Squarespace has a tons of beautiful templates. And that's not all. It has everything you need for business, like invoicing, marketing, scheduling, and more.
And right now, you can get 10% off your first purchase at squarespace.com/LTT. If you guys enjoyed this video, hey, maybe you're the kind of person who roots for AMD's success, so why not go watch our Core Ultra 200 series review for more AMD success?
Red buzzer, get it?